name's Sydnie Christmas.
Is it?
Sydnie
That's an unbelievable name. I love that.
It's terrible, isn't it?
What Britain's Got Talent didn't tell you about Sydnie Christmas. What viewers saw on Britain's Got Talent. A radiant Sydnie Christmas becoming the first solo female singer to win the show in 2024 with a stunning 27.2% of the public vote was only part of the story. Her journey to that glittering stage was far from simple, and behind her soaring performances lay years of unseen struggle, sacrifice, and strength. While the public celebrated her triumph, few knew about the rocky road she walked to get there. Controversies surrounded her background. Questions about her professional experience sparked debates. But the truth is, Sydnie's rise wasn't the overnight success the show made it seem. This is a real story of the girl from Kent who sang her way into the hearts of millions, and the parts Britain's Got Talent never told you. From Kent to the spotlight, Sydnie's early life. Sydnie grew up in the quiet town of Gravesend, Kent. Even as a child, she had a spark, a shine that made it obvious she was destined for something bigger. She wasn't just a kid who liked to sing. She was a kid who had to sing. Her home echoed with Broadway numbers, Disney classics, and made-up tunes performed with fearless joy. Whether she was turning the living room into a stage or grabbing an MIC at a local talent show, Sydnie radiated passion. She was that girl at every school event, the one belting out a solo with goosebump-worthy sincerity while other kids worried about homework or mall plans. Despite Gravesend being far from the epicenter of showbiz, her small town became a quiet incubator for her dreams. Teachers, classmates, and even janitors could tell there was something special about her. She wasn't chasing applause. She was chasing the feeling of being alive on stage. And even as a teenager, she had the kind of drive that most adults never find. Every weekend was an opportunity, another audition, another role, another chance to get better. The DNB Academy, where grit met opportunity. Sydnie eventually enrolled in the DNB Academy of Performing Arts, a choice that would test her like never before. This wasn't a casual arts program. It was boot camp for performers. Days filled with sweat-soaked rehearsals, voice drills, character work, and choreography that pushed everyone to their limits. But Sydnie didn't shrink. She thrived. She learned to command a stage not just with her voice, but with every movement, expression, and pause. This was where she truly became an artist. There were setbacks, of course, voice cracks, choreography meltdowns, days she probably questioned everything. But she showed up again and again because she wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing craft. She built her future one grueling rehearsal at a time. Lazarus, a star is cast. Then came the life-changing role, Lazarus, co-written by none other than David Bowie. Sydnie landed a part in the West End production at King's Cross Theatre. For a girl who once belted show tunes in her Kent living room, performing in a Bowie-backed show was unreal. But make no mistake, this wasn't luck. She walked into that audition with fire, earned her role, and took the stage with the confidence of a seasoned pro. She wasn't just part of the chorus. She was central, bringing vulnerability, power, and presence every night. Lazarus wasn't just a resume booster. It was a proving ground. It taught her how to carry herself among industry veterans, how to survive and thrive in the world of professional theater. It marked the moment Sydnie Christmas stopped being a student of performance and fully stepped into her identity as an artist. The hidden years before BGT. But here's what Britain's Got Talent left out: the grind. Between Lazarus and a televised breakthrough, there was a whole era of Sydnie's life filled with quiet hustle. While the cameras were off and the world wasn't watching, she was performing on cruise ships, shows night after night, sometimes for indifferent audiences, sometimes seasick, sometimes exhausted, but always giving it her all. These weren't glamorous gigs. They were grueling, repetitive, and emotionally draining. But they kept her sharp. They kept her performing. They kept the dream alive. She juggled day-to-day financial pressures, personal doubts, and the emotional fatigue that comes with chasing a dream that seems just out of reach. Yet, through all of it, Sydnie never stopped singing. And every note she hit on that cruise ship was a quiet act of defiance, a reminder that she wasn't giving up. So when she stepped onto the BGT stage, that wasn't just a girl with a great voice. It was a woman with years of work behind every lyric. She brought with her the echoes of Kent, the sweat of rehearsal rooms, the heartbreak of overlooked auditions, the discipline of theater, and the resilience forged in quiet, thankless venues. That's why her voice hit so deeply. Because it wasn't just sound, it was story. Sydnie Christmas didn't win Britain's Got Talent by accident. She earned it through grit, grace, and a lifelong love of the stage. So the next time you watch her perform, remember, it's not just talent you're hearing. It's years of unwavering commitment echoing through every note. Sydnie Christmas's story didn't start when the golden buzzer hit or when she belted out Tomorrow on Britain's Got Talent. Long before the headlines and applause, she was living a real, raw journey, full of unseen moments that shaped the power haze we came to know. After her breakout role in the David Bowie musical Lazarus, Sydnie didn't wait for fame to find her. Instead, she took to the seas, performing on Royal Caribbean cruise ships in full-scale productions like Grease, where she played the bold and unforgettable Rizzo. Night after night, she sang her heart out in There Are Worse Things I Could Do, captivating vacationers from around the world. She also starred in The Muse, Star Water, a more abstract, dreamlike show that pushed her artistic limits. Those cruise ship years weren't just gigs, they were a training ground. She learned stamina, versatility, and how to hold a stage under any circumstance. Then came Bochum, Germany, where she joined the legendary Starlight Express. For 4 years, she worked tirelessly, not as a headliner, but as a swing performer, mastering multiple roles and jumping in at a moment's notice. The mental and emotional demand was intense, but Sydnie pushed through, eventually landing named roles like Belle the Bar Car and Carrie the Luggage Car. While the British public didn't yet know her name, she was quietly building a resume most performers would envy. Still, the West End dream stayed just out of reach. Returning to London with her boyfriend, Sydnie hoped her international experience would open doors, but the theatre world proved brutally unwelcoming. Rejection after rejection left her questioning everything. As friends settled down and built stable lives, she found herself working a front desk job at a gym on a 0-hour contract, struggling to pay rent and still rushing to auditions. It wasn't glamorous, it was survival. She reached her breaking point. Emotionally and financially drained, she faced a moment many artists know too well. The last shot. If this doesn't work, she told herself, maybe it's time to let go. That's when Britain's Got Talent entered the picture, not as a fame grab, but as a desperate cry to be seen, heard, and understood. And when she finally stepped onto that stage, every note she sang came from a place of pain, perseverance, and power. Her cruise ship years, the German winters, the missed holidays, the brutal auditions, all of it was etched into her voice. And when she sang, the audience didn't just hear talent. They felt her story. That's why she resonated. Because Sydnie didn't just show up to perform. She showed up carrying every bruise, every no, every tear, and turned it into something transcendent. Behind the smile and the big voice was a woman who nearly gave up, but didn't. And that's the part Britain's Got Talent didn't show. When Sydnie sang, she wasn't just chasing a dream. She was proving, to the world and to herself, that she still belonged, that all those years, all those sacrifices, weren't in vain. She had earned that spotlight long before the cameras ever started rolling. Let's be honest, Sydnie Christmas's audition on Britain's Got Talent wasn't just another performance. For her, it was one last shot. One, as in, if this didn't work, maybe she'd give it all up. She called it her final attempt. And in that phrase, you could hear both the exhaustion and a flicker of hope. That tiny voice still whispering, maybe this is the moment. Enter Annabelle Williams, the powerhouse vocal coach known for working with names like Sam Smith and James Arthur. But this wasn't just a student-mentor relationship. Annabelle saw Sydnie, not just the nerves, but the fire buried underneath. She helped Sydnie find her voice again, not just technically, but emotionally. Every session was about more than vocal runs or breath control. It was about asking why she was singing, what it meant, and who she wanted to reach. And when Sydnie sang The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow, we didn't just hear a song. We heard years of heartbreak, silent cries, closed doors, and the persistence of a little girl who never stopped dreaming. That kind of vulnerability can't be faked. It takes someone like Annabelle to bring it out, and someone like Sydnie to be brave enough to show it. Because having talent is one thing. But having someone believe in you when you don't even believe in yourself, that's everything. Annabelle was more than a coach. She was a lifeline. When Sydnie stepped onto that stage, she carried every sleepless night, every unpaid bill, every whispered doubt. And when she opened her mouth, she wasn't just singing, she was fighting to be seen. That's why the judges looked like they might cry. It wasn't just a performance. It was a soul refusing to be silenced. And how many of us have chased that one dream that feels so close, yet impossibly far? That's Sydnie's story. She didn't just sing. She screamed quietly to the world, "I'm still here. I still believe. I'm not giving up." But behind the scenes, there was another constant source of strength, her boyfriend, Max Rizzo. While the cameras captured the glitter and applause, what they didn't show was a man behind the woman, standing by her through every high and low. This wasn't a glossy Instagram couple. They met grinding it out in Starlight Express in Germany, both living the unglamorous reality of musical theater. Life on stage meant roller skates, long hours, constant rehearsals, and rejection after rejection. And still, Max stayed. Not just with comforting words, but with action. When gigs were scarce and the bank account was low, when confidence was slipping and dreams felt fragile, Max didn't flinch. He rolled up his sleeves and said, "We've got this." Their connection was forged in shared struggle. That kind of bond, built on sleepless nights, shared fears, and stubborn hope, can't be manufactured. Max wasn't just clapping from the sidelines. He was in the trenches, reminding Sydnie she was never alone. Together, they held on to a dream that most would have let go. And when she finally stood on that stage, she didn't do it alone. She carried Max's unwavering belief, Annabelle's mentorship, and her own unshakable spirit. And that's what made her moment not just powerful, but unforgettable. Even when the world wasn't paying attention, Max Rizzo still saw Sydnie Christmas's talent shining like neon. That kind of loyalty is rare. The kind where someone holds your hand through the silence, the setbacks, and the unpaid bills. When roles kept slipping through her fingers, and rejection after rejection chipped away at her hope, Max stood firm. He believed in her when it would have been easy to quit. And that unwavering belief, that's the kind of faith that keeps a dream alive when everything else screams, "Give it up." What we didn't see on the Britain's Got Talent stage was just how hard-won Sydnie's confidence really was. She looked poised, powerful, and in control, but backstage, she was trembling. "I was shaking like a leaf," she later confessed. And that tells you everything. Her courage didn't come from having nothing to fear, but from showing up in spite of it. Her audition wasn't just a performance. It was a product of years of blood, sweat, heartbreak, and hustle. That kind of presence doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from crying in dressing rooms, pushing through disappointment, and showing up anyway. When Amanda Holden hit that golden buzzer, it wasn't just a shiny moment for TV. It was validation. It was the loudest yes after years of quiet no's. And that moment wasn't just a win for Sydnie. It was a win for every artist grinding in the dark, praying that someone might finally notice. Through it all, Max was there, quietly, constantly, holding her up when she was close to letting go. That's real love, the kind that shows up when the lights are off and the crowd is gone. So yes, Sydnie earned her golden buzzer, but behind that glitter was a story built on grit, resilience, and love, and Max helped build every step of it. But then came the storm, the controversy. Just when it seemed like Sydnie's story was headed toward a perfect fairy-tale ending, social media lit up with doubt. Critics flooded the internet, questioning if she was truly an underdog or just another industry insider disguised as a newcomer. People dug up her resume, listing past performances in Starlight Express, Lazarus, and Grease, saying she's no amateur. The whispers turned into accusations that she was a plant, someone producers placed strategically to ensure a compelling storyline. It didn't help that she performed last in the finale, which some fans viewed as an unfair advantage. Conspiracy theories about the competition being rigged began to circulate wildly. But despite all that noise, Sydnie held her ground. Simon Cowell publicly backed her, saying without hesitation that he believed she would win. And though he tried to calm the outrage by claiming none of the acts are professionals, that only fueled the fire further. Through all the chaos, Sydnie stayed composed. But it wasn't easy. She described the backlash as soul-destroying. Imagine finally getting your big break, only to have your integrity ripped apart by strangers online. She was blindsided by the negativity. The pressure of performing on national TV is intense enough, but to then face a storm of doubt and suspicion? It was crushing. And yet, Sydney didn't let it consume her. She drew a line for her mental health and said, "There's nothing I can do to change their minds, so I've had to separate myself." That's strength. That's knowing your worth. And when she did respond, it wasn't with bitterness, but with power. On social media, she reminded the world, "You don't know me or the fierce backbone I have. You cannot touch US." With that, she gave credit to the army behind her, her friends, family, fans, and especially Maximum. They were the reason she could still stand tall. The controversy didn't break her. It revealed just how unshakable she truly is. And that brings us to the end of this journey. If Sydnie Christmas inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real stories that go far beyond the spotlight. And for another emotional deep dive into the lives behind the music, click the next video on your screen. Thanks for watching.